Ever walked away from a conversation feeling emotionally drained? Like someone just stole your peace? Chances are you've just crossed paths with a toxic person. And if that keeps happening, you're not alone. The ancient Stoics, masters of inner discipline, believed that true strength doesn't come from controlling others, but from controlling ourselves. In a world overflowing with conflict, judgment, and manipulation, this timeless philosophy is more relevant than ever. So how did you protect your mind, heart, and energy from toxic people? What if you had a practical, battle-tested toolkit to stay calm, composed, and unshaken? In this video, we'll uncover 13 powerful Stoic-inspired strategies that can help you deal with toxic people. Not with aggression, but with grace, clarity, and quiet confidence. These are actionable insights rooted in ancient wisdom, but perfectly suited for today's emotionally demanding world. By the end, you won't just know how to deal with toxic behavior, you'll rise above it. Subscribe now to Stoic Capsule and join a growing community focused on inner peace, strength, and mental mastery. Let's dive into strategy number 1. 1. Identify and understand the toxic threat. Imagine for a moment that you're a vigilant guard standing at the gates of your personal citadel, a fortress that holds your mental peace, physical health, and emotional security. Your first responsibility: awareness. You must recognize what threatens your gates before you can protect what's inside. This is exactly how the Stoics approached life. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most revered voices, once wrote, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." This perspective becomes your armor in dealing with toxic people. It's not their behavior that has power over you, it's how you judge that behavior, how you choose to respond. A Stoic mindset teaches you to observe, not absorb. The moment you recognize someone's behavior as toxic, you take the first step in regaining control of your response. Here are some warning signs to watch for. Constant criticism. They regularly find faults in your decisions, actions, or personality. Whether it's subtle or direct, the effect is the same: you begin to question your worth. Manipulation. Toxic individuals often use emotional tactics like guilt, flattery, or even subtle threats to control you. These aren't signs of love or care, they're tools for dominance. Chronic negativity. Some people seem addicted to pessimism. They focus only on what's wrong, dragging others down into their emotional spiral. Recognizing these behaviors isn't about judgment, it's about clarity. It's about looking at the situation with what the Stoics call the disciplined gaze. Calm, rational, and unclouded by emotional fog. And just as there are warning signs, there are also toxic personality types to keep on your radar. Let's begin with one of the most common: the narcissist, the person who constantly seeks validation, who makes everything about themselves, and who treats others like tools instead of people. In the last section, we begin identifying toxic patterns and personalities that threaten our inner peace. Now, it's time to go deeper, not just in recognizing these individuals, but in protecting ourselves from their influence. 2. Fortify your walls. Think of the narcissist. They thrive on attention, craving approval and adoration like air. At first, they may seem charming, magnetic even, but over time, you realize their interest in you is one-sided. Conversations become emotionally draining. You walk away feeling empty, not uplifted. Then there's the gossip, the one who breathes life into rumors and tension. Their world revolves around drama. They subtly pit people against each other, watching the chaos unfold like it's entertainment. And, of course, the energy vampire. This person might not mean harm directly, but they leave you mentally and emotionally depleted after every interaction. It's as if they feed on your peace, leaving you drained and fatigued. Recognizing these toxic personalities is like creating a mental map of your emotional battlefield. Just as Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, would strategize for war, you too can anticipate harmful behavior and prepare your emotional defenses accordingly. Now that you've identified the threat, it's time to fortify your inner citadel. Imagine yourself as Marcus Aurelius, ruler of a vast empire, defender of its borders. His strength wasn't just in armies, but in unwavering self-discipline, wisdom, and resilience. To guard your emotional empire, you'll need the first layer of defense: boundaries. Boundaries are not just invisible lines, they're the foundation of self-respect. They define what behavior you accept and what crosses the line. Just as an emperor wouldn't allow enemies to trespass into sacred territory, you must not allow toxic people to invade your emotional space. Stoicism emphasizes reason, clarity, and composure. That means the first step is self-awareness. Identify exactly what drains you. Is it a friend's constant negativity, a co-worker's manipulation, a relative who offers invasive advice under the guise of care? Be honest with yourself. What are you no longer willing to tolerate? Once you've identified your limits, the next step is to communicate them clearly and confidently. Channel your inner Marcus, firm, calm, but never cruel. Here are a few Stoic-inspired strategies to express your boundaries with clarity. Use I statements to describe how their behavior impacts you. Instead of saying, "You're always so negative," try, "I feel drained," when conversations focus only on what's going wrong. Be specific. Vague language creates room for misunderstanding. Don't just say, "I need space." Say, "I can't talk right now, but I'd love to catch up later this week." Stand your ground kindly. Being assertive isn't the same as being aggressive. You can uphold your boundaries without anger or resentment. Remember, protecting your peace doesn't mean shutting people out. It means preserving your strength. Because the stronger your emotional walls, the more resilient you become when toxic forces try to break through. And the next time someone tries to guilt you, manipulate you, or drain your energy, you'll know exactly where to draw the line. We just talked about building strong emotional walls, your personal boundaries, and how to defend them with clarity and consistency. But what happens when toxic people push harder, seeking attention through chaos and conflict? 3. Become uninteresting to the emotional barbarian. Picture this. A storm of negativity is headed your way, led by someone who thrives on emotional chaos. These are the emotional barbarians, toxic individuals who stir up drama just to watch it burn. They poke, prod, insult, and bait, hoping you'll snap. They live for your reaction, whether it's frustration, anger, or hurt. The moment you show emotion, they win. So how do you protect yourself? How do you disarm someone who feeds off your feelings? You become a gray rock, emotionally neutral, unshakable, and utterly uninteresting. This strategy, known as the gray rock method, was popularized by therapist Paul Friedman. Its principle is deeply aligned with Stoic wisdom. Stay emotionally detached from external provocation. Don't fuel the fire. Instead, become still, like a dull gray stone, moving, emotionless, and forgettable. Now, this doesn't mean shutting down your emotions entirely or becoming robotic. It means not giving the toxic person what they want, a reaction. You remain composed. Like a stoic in battle, choosing your response with discipline rather than being dragged into emotional warfare. Seneca once said, "True happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence on the future." In other words, peace comes not from controlling others, but from managing ourselves. When someone tries to lure you into conflict, deny them the emotional energy they crave. That is true power. Let's break down how to apply this. Imagine someone insults you. Maybe they criticize your work, mock your appearance, or spread rumors. Instead of defending yourself or escalating the argument, you respond calmly with a short, neutral phrase like, "That's interesting," or "I'll think about that." No eye rolls, no sharp retorts, no visible frustration. You offer no reaction that can be used against you, no emotional handle for them to grab onto. You don't reward their behavior with your energy. This takes strength because every part of you might want to defend your pride. But the Stoics remind us that emotional mastery is not weakness, it's wisdom. The gray rock method becomes your emotional armor, your shield in the face of provocation. And here's the unexpected outcome. When toxic people realize they can't trigger you, they lose interest. Their power over you dissolves. You become boring to their drama-driven minds, and that's exactly what you want. So the next time someone tries to bait you into reacting, ask yourself, do I want to fight fire with fire, or let their flame die out on its own? Choose stillness. Choose calm. Choose to be the gray rock. Previously, we explored how becoming a gray rock can neutralize emotional chaos. But what happens when toxic individuals don't stop, when they keep pressing, manipulating, and wearing you down with relentless emotional pressure? 4. The broken record technique. Picture this. You're faced with someone who won't take no for an answer. They keep twisting your words, guilt-tripping you, or bombarding you with sarcasm and hostility, all in an effort to wear you down and bend your will. It feels like being caught in a psychological sandstorm. Right. In these moments, emotional composure is your greatest shield, and the broken record technique, rooted in Stoic resilience, becomes your sword. This method is deceptively simple but deeply effective. It involves calmly and consistently repeating your position, just like a broken record, stuck on the same sentence. You don't argue. You don't elaborate. You don't get pulled into emotional side trails. You simply state your boundary again and again, without losing your temper or changing your tone. Imagine someone says, "Come on, don't be difficult, just do it for me this one time." Instead of explaining or defending yourself, you repeat, "I'm not comfortable with that." And then again, "I'm not comfortable with that." Why does this work? Because manipulative people often rely on your emotional reactions. They want you to justify yourself, to get flustered, to waver so they can exploit the opening. But the broken record gives them nothing to latch onto. Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life." And in this context, freedom means owning your boundaries, saying no without guilt, saying it again without apology. This technique isn't about being stubborn. It's about staying grounded. It helps you maintain clarity when others are trying to cloud your judgment. It's a quiet, steady assertion of your right to peace. Let's take it deeper. Toxic people often escalate their tactics when they see their usual tricks aren't working. They may shift from guilt to flattery, or even burst into anger. That's when your inner Stoic must rise. You do not owe them an explanation. You do not owe them your peace. What you owe yourself is emotional stability. Respond with calm repetition. Don't engage in the whirlwind. And if the situation grows too heated, remove yourself. Remember, you are not responsible for their behavior, you are only responsible for how you respond to it. This is where the true power of the broken record lies, in helping you remain calm, consistent, and centered even when the storm howls around you. By applying this technique, you shift from being a target to being an unshakable presence, one that cannot be guilted, baited, or emotionally hijacked. So the next time someone tries to wear you down with emotional manipulation, don't escalate. Don't explain. Just repeat your truth firm, clear, and unmovable. Because real power doesn't scream. It stands firm. Previously, we explored how calmly repeating your truth, the broken record technique, can disarm manipulation. But what happens when toxic people change tactics? When instead of pushing, they start baiting you? 5. Don't take the bait. No, imagine this. A skilled fisherman casting out a hook not for fish, but for your emotions. The bait, a snide comment, a passive-aggressive remark, or a carefully crafted guilt trip. The goal, to reel you into an emotional storm where they control the current, and you lose your balance. This is a classic move toxic individuals make. They thrive on chaos. Their power comes from your reaction. The angrier, more flustered, or defensive you become, the more satisfied they feel. So how do you disarm them? The Stoics, especially philosophers like Epictetus, gave us a powerful tool: indifference. But let's be clear, Stoic indifference is not cold apathy. It's not about shutting down or becoming emotionless. It's about emotional sovereignty, choosing not to be pulled into every conflict or provocation. Think of it this way. Apathy is a lack of care, but Stoic indifference is the discipline of not letting what you can't control disturb your peace. Here's how it works. In real time. First, recognize the bait. Become aware of the pattern. Are they making veiled jabs masked as jokes? Are they subtly blaming you to trigger guilt? Identifying the strategy is half the battle. Once you see it for what it is, you gain power over it. Next, resist the emotional hook. That's where indifference becomes your shield. Don't take the insult personally. Don't respond with anger. Don't explain yourself endlessly. Instead, pause. Breathe. Let the bait sit untouched in the water. Like a seasoned Stoic, observe without absorbing. You might say something simple, like, "I hear you," or "Thanks for sharing," and move on. What happens when you don't bite? Their power weakens. Their need for drama is starved. The emotional storm they were hoping to stir, it fizzles out before it can even begin. This isn't about being heartless, it's about being centered. Stoicism doesn't ask you to become a cold machine. It encourages you to feel deeply, but only when it serves your values, not someone else's chaos. When you stop reacting to every insult, every jab, every attempt to provoke you, you reclaim your emotional energy. And that energy, that's your strength. So next time someone casts a line your way, remember this: not every hook deserves your bite. The Stoic doesn't avoid pain by escaping life. He avoids unnecessary suffering by mastering his response to it. Let their drama starve. Let your peace flourish. In the last section, we learned the importance of not reacting to bait, of stepping back, instead of stepping into someone else's emotional trap. But what if the provocation becomes verbal, loud, cutting, and direct? 6. The art of the non-reaction. Picture this. Someone comes at you like a verbal gladiator. Their weapon of choice: sarcasm, passive aggression, or outright insults. They don't just want to express themselves, they want to provoke. humiliate, and dominate the emotional playing field. These toxic individuals thrive on chaos. They want to fight, but what if you simply don't engage? Here enters one of the most powerful yet underrated Stoic techniques, the art of the non-reaction. When applied intentionally, silence can speak louder than any argument. It disrupts their script. They expect heat rage, defense, justification. But when they're met with calm stillness, their momentum stalls. The game stops. Let's be honest, staying silent isn't easy. We're conditioned to defend ourselves, to correct false claims, to win the argument. But Stoicism invites us to flip that script. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor himself, believed real strength lies not in how loudly we respond, but in how well we control that urge to respond. Think of it this way. Toxic people follow a predictable rhythm. They lash out, then wait for you to react. If you respond emotionally frustrated, flustered, or furious, you've just given them what they wanted. But if you give them nothing, you break the rhythm. Imagine them as a tennis player, serving a powerful shot only to find the other side of the court empty. No return, no rally, just silence. And in that silence lies your power. Non-reaction is not about weakness. It's about commanding your emotions, not surrendering them. It's about sending a clear message. I refuse to participate in your chaos. This silence is not empty, it's full of meaning. It shows that you are unmoved, centered, and in control of yourself. As Marcus Aurelius said, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. In that moment of stillness, you are. Now. A word of caution. When you choose non-reaction, the toxic person might double down. They might escalate their insults, desperate to get a rise out of you. Let them. Stay still. Hold your ground. Remember, silence is not retreat, it's restraint, wielded with precision. Of course, non-reaction won't be the right response in every situation, but when used with intention, it becomes one of your most powerful defenses, shielding your energy, protecting your peace, and showing the world that you will not be emotionally manipulated. When you choose silence, you're choosing power. When you choose stillness, you're choosing wisdom. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, don't get swept away. Be the calm, be the rock, and let your silence speak volumes. In the last section, we discovered how powerful silence can be when dealing with verbal attacks. But sometimes, the best defense isn't about saying less, it's about being around less. 7. Limit your exposure. Imagine yourself inside your carefully guarded inner citadel, your mental and emotional sanctuary, surrounded by strong, well-built walls. But even the thickest walls can't block out every threat. Like relentless intruders, toxic people often find ways to slip through cracks in your defenses, draining your energy even when you've done your best to stay protected. This is where a core Stoic principle becomes vital. Focus only on what you can control. You may not be able to change the behavior of toxic people, but you can absolutely control how much access they have to you. The first and most effective line of defense: limit your exposure, if possible. Minimize the time you spend with those who consistently drain your emotional energy. Can you skip that lunch meeting? Politely excuse yourself from that conversation. Decline that unnecessary gathering. This isn't about being rude, it's about being wise. Just as a Stoic commander would never march his troops into a pointless battle, you shouldn't expose yourself to unnecessary negativity. Of course, total avoidance isn't always realistic. What if the toxic person is a co-worker, a family member, someone in your close social circle. In those cases, emotional distance becomes your strongest shield. How do you do that? Start with mental detachment. Epictetus once said, "Freedom is the only worthy goal in life, and it begins with understanding." That understanding gives you the power to observe someone's toxic behavior without letting it shape your mood. Let's say a co-worker is constantly negative, complaining about everything under the sun. Instead of absorbing their pessimism, try this. Tell yourself, they must be having a tough day, and move on. That's cognitive reframing, a powerful Stoic strategy. You don't deny the behavior, you just choose to see it differently, on your own terms. And here's another critical move. Anchor yourself to the positive. Toxic people thrive on dragging others into their storm of negativity. Don't let them pull you in. Focus on what uplifts you, your passions, your purpose, your supportive relationships. These are your inner allies. They form a safe emotional refuge that toxic people cannot access. Think of limiting exposure as building a protective moat around your citadel. It's not cowardice, it's clarity. It's not avoidance, it's self-respect. The Stoics weren't passive. They believed in living morally, rationally, and with strength. When you reduce your exposure to destructive people physically or emotionally, you're not withdrawing from life. You're making space for something greater: clarity, peace, and a mind free to thrive. So ask yourself, who has too much access to your emotional energy right now? And how might your life feel if you reclaimed that space? In the previous section, we explored how distancing yourself physically and emotionally from toxic influences can protect your inner peace. But isolation alone isn't the solution. Even the strongest Stoic needs allies. 8. Build your support system. Now imagine again that you're standing at the gate of your inner citadel. Your emotional defenses are fortified. You've mastered silence. You've reduced exposure to toxic people. And you've guarded your mental space with discipline. But no matter how resilient you are, even the most vigilant warrior can't defend the fortress alone. This is where your Stoic phalanx comes in, your trusted circle of allies. Just like the tightly woven military formations of ancient times, your support system gives you strength, stability, and unity in moments when life throws emotional battles your way. The Stoics, especially great thinkers like Seneca, believed deeply in living in harmony with nature, which includes living in harmony with others. They taught that a life of virtue is one strengthened through community, surrounding yourself with individuals who inspire you, uplift you, and reflect the values you want to cultivate within yourself. So who belongs in your phalanx? They are the friends, mentors, or family members who listen when you're overwhelmed, who offer clarity when you're lost in confusion, and who remind you of your worth when toxic people try to make you forget. They're not just sounding boards, they are mirrors, reflecting back your strength when you can't see it for yourself. Toxic individuals often chip away at your sense of self-worth, but a healthy support system rebuilds it. It counters the damage, not only by encouraging you, but by helping you remember who you are. The belief that others hold in you, especially when you're struggling, can reignite your inner fire and help you endure emotional storms. And just like the Stoics advised, you should strive to surround yourself with people who embody the virtues you want to strengthen: resilience, honesty, calm, wisdom. Watching how these people navigate challenges can be profoundly inspiring. Their example becomes your blueprint. Of course, building a solid support network takes time and intention. Here's how you begin. Invest in meaningful time. Don't just text occasionally, have deeper conversations. Share your struggles, celebrate their wins, and listen with presence. Connection is built in those small, authentic moments. Seek like-minded communities. Whether it's joining a book club, a volunteer group, or an online forum aligned with your values. Intentionally place yourself among people who support growth, not drama. Show gratitude. Never underestimate the power of appreciation. A simple thank you to someone who has your back can strengthen the bond and remind them they matter too. In the end, your support system is your emotional armor. It helps you hold the line when the world feels heavy. So if your inner citadel is your sanctuary, your allies are the shields around you, reminding you that you never have to face the storm alone. In the last section, we saw how building a strong support system, your Stoic phalanx, can serve as a powerful shield against emotional harm. But even the best external defense won't matter if what's inside begins to crumble. That's why this next step is all about turning inward. 9. Prioritize self-care. Think of engaging with toxic people like enduring a prolonged battle. Even if you win the skirmish, the toll it takes on your mind and spirit can leave you drained, discouraged, and worn thin. Just like a seasoned Stoic warrior tends to his wounds and sharpens his blade after every conflict, you must also tend to your emotional armor, and that means committing to self-care. This isn't indulgence, it's preservation. In fact, you should treat self-care as a non-negotiable part of your daily life, just as vital as any task. On your calendar, carve out the time, protect it fiercely. Your peace of mind depends on it. Here's how Stoic inspired self-care can help you recover your energy and rebuild your emotional defenses. Engage in activities that spark joy. What lifts your spirit? Is it painting, jogging, playing the piano, writing in a journal? Identify the pursuits that replenish your emotional energy and immerse yourself in them fully. These aren't just hobbies, they're emotional recharging stations. When you engage in something that truly delights you, your inner light grows stronger, making you far more resistant to external darkness. Practice Stoic stillness through meditation. The ancient Stoics, including Marcus Aurelius, regularly engaged in meditative reflection. They practiced silence, contemplation, and mental clarity. Today, you can cultivate the same mental stillness through daily meditation. Even 10 quiet minutes can help you step back from chaos, calm the storm in your mind, and reconnect with your center. Find refuge in nature. The Stoics believed that harmony with nature was central to a virtuous life, and modern science agrees. Time spent in green spaces reduces stress and lifts your mood. Whether it's a walk through a quiet park or a hike into the woods, nature soothes the nervous system and gives you perspective. The sky, the trees, the breeze, they remind you that life is vast and your problems are passing. Treat self-care as preventive maintenance. Just like a warrior keeps his armor polished and his sword sharp before the next battle, you must care for your well-being consistently, not only when you're burned out. This means listening closely to your body. Are you tense, drained, snapping more easily? These are warning signs, not weaknesses. Respond with kindness to yourself, not punishment. Nourish your body to support your mind. Often, we overlook the basics, but things like eating nutritious food, getting sufficient sleep, and taking mindful breaks throughout your day form the very foundation of emotional resilience. Think of these habits as the building blocks of your Stoic citadel. Without them, even the strongest mindset begins to falter. So remember, self-care is not selfish. It is a wise, Stoic act of discipline and preparation. It's the way you reinforce your emotional walls, restore your strength, and stay ready to face the world with clarity and calm. Because the stronger you are within, the less power the toxic forces outside will ever have over you. After reinforcing your emotional strength through deliberate self-care, you now have the energy and clarity to face toxic individuals with greater steadiness. But what if, despite all your efforts, their negativity still gets under your skin? This next lesson offers a vital shift in perspective. Point 10. Remember, it's not about you. Picture this. You're walking beneath a heavy, dark cloud. It follows you everywhere, casting shadows, dripping tension, coloring your mood. But the cloud doesn't belong to you. It was never yours to begin with. That's exactly what it feels like when you're caught in the emotional weather of a toxic person. Many toxic individuals carry around their own inner storms, anxieties, insecurities, unresolved pain, and without even realizing it, they project these onto everyone around them. You might find yourself the target of blame, criticism, or bitterness, but the truth is, their negativity says more about them than it ever could about you. This is where the Stoic concept of prosoj comes into play, a term that means attention or awareness. In Stoic philosophy, especially in the writings of Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, this principle urges us to become intelligent observers of our own experience. We step back from emotional chaos and choose instead to see events with clarity and reason. So, how can you apply this to toxic encounters? Start by recognizing projection for what it is. Toxic people often lash out not because of what you've done, but because of the unresolved battles they are fighting. They criticize to mask their insecurity, accuse to avoid accountability, and stir chaos to escape confronting themselves. When you adopt the mindset of a detached observer, you begin to see the patterns clearly. You become like a scientist studying a storm, rather than someone caught in its fury. Their words may sting, but they don't define you. Just like a shadow cast by a cloud, their darkness is temporary and external. It does not alter the ground it momentarily touches. Beneath the shadow, the sun still shines. Likewise, your inner light, your integrity, remains untouched. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been. This is not about becoming cold or indifferent. Stoic detachment isn't apathy, it's clarity. It allows you to care about others without letting their chaos overtake your peace. You can acknowledge their suffering without carrying their burden. You can offer compassion without becoming a casualty of their emotional war. And perhaps most importantly, this mindset protects your time and energy. As Epictetus famously said, it's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Don't waste yours on the endless loops of toxic drama. Your life is too brief, too sacred, and too meaningful to be spent reacting to those who are not walking the same path of virtue and peace. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, pause. Remember who you are. Stay rooted in your values and let the cloud pass, knowing the sun is still shining above. So as you remind yourself that the darkness others carry isn't yours to bear, and you protect your peace through emotional detachment, there's one more urge you must guard against, especially when it comes to people you care about deeply. 11. Don't try to fix them. It's a natural instinct when someone close to you is clearly struggling, lashing out, or drowning in their own toxic patterns. The desire to help can feel almost overwhelming. You may want to step in, offer solutions, rescue them from their pain. But here's a hard Stoic truth. Not everyone wants to be helped, and even fewer are ready to change. In Stoicism, this is where wisdom begins. Knowing what is and isn't within your control. Trying to fix a toxic person is like pouring water into a broken vase. No matter how much energy you invest, it continues to leak, leaving you emotionally drained. A person must choose to confront their behavior and take responsibility for it. Without that internal decision, your efforts, however well-intentioned, will fall flat. As Stoic philosophy teaches, the responsibility for one's emotions and actions lies with the individual alone. Their healing, their transformation, their growth, it's theirs to pursue, not yours to engineer. Imagine your inner peace as a carefully tended garden. You've spent time planting seeds of virtue, watering your values, and pulling your own weeds. A toxic person, however, may bring with them the seeds of chaos, negativity, blame, manipulation. If you constantly try to weed their garden, you abandon your own, and soon it begins to wither. Instead of attempting to fix them, focus on maintaining your own integrity. Nurture positive relationships, pursue meaningful work, and engage in practices that keep your soul centered. That's where your energy is most needed, of course. Stoicism doesn't promote cold indifference. If the opportunity arises and the relationship permits, you can gently encourage introspection. Offer them a book that changed your perspective. Recommend a therapist if appropriate. Or simply pose a thoughtful question that invites them to reflect on their actions, but do so with detachment from outcome. Don't force it. Don't cling to hope for change. Simply extend the offering and walk away, knowing you've done what you can within your own sphere of influence. And most importantly, lead by example. Your calm demeanor, your emotional discipline, your commitment to virtue, they speak louder than advice ever could. When you live the philosophy, you become a living invitation for others to rise. Still, even with your example, some people will remain locked in their toxic patterns. In such cases, the most courageous and compassionate choice may be to walk away, set firm boundaries, reduce contact, or remove yourself entirely if needed. You are not abandoning them, you are choosing yourself, because in the end, while you cannot steer someone else's path, you are fully responsible for walking your own with peace, dignity, and strength. Now that you've released the burden of trying to fix others, choosing instead to lead by example and protect your own inner harmony, there's another powerful Stoic decision that may lie ahead. 12. Know when to walk away. Picture this. You've built a sanctuary, your emotional stronghold fortified by clear boundaries, daily practices, and a garden of inner peace. You've done the work. You've detached, remained calm, and tried every reasonable approach. And yet, the storm of toxicity keeps pounding at your gates. What now? The Stoics, known for their emphasis on reason and virtue, also understood the importance of choosing your battles and walking away when the battle is no longer worth fighting. Recognizing when to step away from a toxic relationship, especially one that's long-standing or deeply personal, can feel like betrayal. You might struggle with guilt, with loyalty, with fear of what comes next. But Stoicism teaches that your first duty is to your own moral clarity and peace of mind. Remaining in a relationship, whether personal or professional, that constantly chips away at your emotional stability directly contradicts Stoic principles. Why? Because living rationally means preserving the integrity of your inner life. Imagine a poisonous person like a relentless battering ram against the walls of your castle. Even the strongest fortress, over time, can crack under constant assault. So, what's the wise course to preserve the peace you've fought to build? Sometimes the only option left is to leave the battlefield entirely. Seneca, the Roman Stoic, reminds us, the whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. What are you sacrificing by staying locked in a cycle of stress, anger, or self-doubt? Time, energy, peace, the very things Stoicism helps us protect. When you walk away from a toxic dynamic, you're not giving up on the person. You're giving up the pattern, the negativity that drains you, the dysfunction that delays your growth. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. But walking away doesn't always require a grand gesture. It can be subtle, declining invitations, reducing contact, setting firmer emotional boundaries. Each small act of retreat is a quiet declaration that your peace matters. Before making that choice, ask yourself honestly, have I tried open communication? Have I set clear boundaries and followed through? Has there been a consistent pattern of harm or just isolated incidents? Is this relationship enriching my life or eroding it? If the answers point toward harm, then choosing to walk away becomes an act of radical self-care. It allows space for healthier connections to flourish, ones rooted in respect, virtue, and mutual growth. And remember, the Stoic does not seek to control others. They focus on what is theirs, their thoughts, their actions, their responses. Accepting that you cannot change someone is not giving up. It's letting go of what was never yours to hold. So if you must walk away, do so without bitterness or blame. Walk away with clarity, with dignity, and with full confidence that by choosing peace, you are choosing the path of reason, resilience, and self-respect. After learning when it's time to walk away, the next essential step is often the hardest and the most freeing. 13. Forgive yourself. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack on a long journey, one filled not just with exhaustion, but with guilt, regret, and unresolved pain. That burden slows your steps, it saps your strength, and it robs you of the clarity needed to move forward. In Stoic philosophy, forgiveness isn't about excusing someone else's actions. It's about releasing yourself from the emotional chains that keep you anchored to the past, especially when you've had to deal with toxic people. Clinging to resentment only poisons your present and clouds your future. The Stoics taught that we must accept what lies beyond our control and the actions of others. They are firmly in that category. By holding onto hate, you're allowing those people to continue affecting you even when they're no longer in your life. Why give them that power? Instead, reclaim your strength by shifting focus inward. Forgiveness begins with your inner landscape. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength lies in choosing to let go. Forgiveness, from the Stoic perspective, doesn't mean saying what happened was okay. It means acknowledging the truth, accepting that it cannot be changed, and deciding to move forward with a lighter heart. It's not for them, it's for you. Here's how to start. Name your emotions. Don't bury the hurt. Recognize it. By facing it, you begin the healing. Practice self-compassion. If you wouldn't shame a friend for being manipulated or mistreated, don't shame yourself either. Reframe the past. Ask, was that toxic person acting out of deep pain or ignorance? Understanding doesn't excuse their actions, but it can free you from their grip. Release the story. Resentment is a prison you build around your own heart. Forgiveness is the key that unlocks it. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing freedom. So, as you step onto the next path of your journey, Imagine yourself traveling lighter, no longer dragging the past behind you. Just you, moving forward, stronger and more at peace. Because in practicing these 13 Stoic strategies, you're not only protecting your inner peace, you're transforming into a quiet, steady force of resilience. And if this message resonated with you, if something in these words sparked a sense of hope, calm, or strength, I invite you to join me here. In this space we're building together. Like this video, share it with someone who may need it, and subscribe to Stoic Capsule for more wisdom, grounded strength, and healing through ancient philosophy. There's more to come, and every step you take matters. Until next time, stay present, stay grounded, and keep choosing peace from within.